President Obama is once again speaking out about the vitriol of the 2016 presidential race. And this time around, he's also calling out the media's role in covering the campaign. During a speech given at a journalism awards ceremony, the president lamented the current state of politics and called on reporters to do better.
I know I'm not the only one who may be more than a little dismayed about what's happening on the campaign trail right now. The divisive and often vulgar rhetoric that's aimed at everybody, but often is focused on the vulnerable or women or minorities. The sometimes well-intentioned, but I think misguided attempts to shut down that speech. The violent reaction that we see, as well as the deafening silence from too many of our leaders. And so it's worth asking ourselves what each of us, as politicians or journalists, but most of all as citizens, may have done to contribute to this atmosphere in our politics. I was going to call it carnival atmosphere, but that implies fun. When our elected officials and our political campaigns become entirely untethered to reason and facts and analysis, when it doesn't matter what's true and what's not, that makes it all but impossible for us to make good decisions on behalf of future generations.
And joining me now to discuss are CNN senior media and politics reporter Dylan Byers and CNN political commentator Errol Louis. Thank you both for coming on. Errol, I want to start with you. I just read your article where you laid out why you disagree that the media is to blame for Donald Trump. Tell us why you disagree with what the president just said.
Sure. There seems to be some impression that any press given to Donald Trump, either directly and intentionally or indirectly and unintentionally, helps him. And that is simply not the case. I mean, he is legitimate news. He has been from the time that he announced, or at least from the time that he made clear that he was really going to run and shot to the top of the polls. Now, if anybody has some sort of directive about why we're not supposed to cover the Republican frontrunner for president, I would love to hear the rationale. But the reality is, he is newsworthy. If he should somehow become president, he would actually be making history. We've never had a president who had never served in government before and, so to speak, walked in off the street and into the Oval Office. And sort of letting the voters know, letting people know that he has engaged in misstatements of fact and vulgar, petty, and childish attacks, and completely out of his depth in certain issues, especially related to foreign policy. It's our job to let the public know, and that's what we've done, whether the president likes it or not.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because from what I heard from President Obama, it seemed like he was insinuating that the media doesn't fact check, that the media just kind of lets on Trump do whatever and say whatever he wants without, looking at what he's really saying and scrutinizing it. But Dylan, that's not necessarily true, right? I mean, I know CNN, for one, does it all the time, especially after every major event.
No, it's not true. There's actually a preponderance of fact-checkers, fact-checking organizations. Every media organization runs some version of its own sort of fact-checking outfit. In fact, go back and look just 2 days before the last Super Tuesday, Politico reviewed a week's worth of Donald Trump's stump speeches, victory rallies, and found that he basically told a lie or made a misstatement about once every 5 minutes on average. What happened 2 days later? Trump went on to win Florida and Illinois and a host of other states. The issue isn't that there isn't fact-checking. The issue is that the facts just don't matter. They don't matter to the litany of voters out there who are so frustrated with the establishment and who view the media as being in cahoots with the establishment and basically advancing a sort of pro-liberal, pro-elitist, pro-coastal, pro-global, what have you, sort of worldview that leaves the American middle class worker behind. You read about all this anger directed towards the political establishment, the financial establishment, the cultural establishment by blue-collar workers. They view the media as being a part of that establishment, and that's why when the media comes out and says, hey, look, here are the facts, Donald Trump's wrong, he's lying to you, they say, we're not even going to listen.
So, Errol, in your view, how is press coverage different now than when President Obama was running for president? Some would argue he was also sort of given a free pass by the media.
Well, I don't know how much of a free pass he got. From what I remember, being on the trail back in Iowa and South Carolina back in 2008, he was a phenomenon, and he got the kind of coverage, frankly, it reminds me in some ways of some of the coverage of Donald Trump. The mere fact that, say, 10,000 people came out to certain events in the middle of the cornfields, that is, in fact, newsworthy. If the registration rolls spike up, if unprecedented numbers of people are coming out to rallies, coming out to vote in primaries and caucuses, that is news. And believe me, candidate at the time, Barack Obama, benefited greatly from a lot of that stuff. And I've got to say something else, Pam. I mean, to hear the president talk about he wishes we would dig deeper, when this administration has the record for denying freedom of information requests and has issued secret subpoenas to try and track the movements and the phone calls of journalists and so forth. This is not somebody who has a lot of credibility, frankly, on this issue. I mean, again, on the campaign trail in 2008, all of the coverage was fine. Once he made it into the White House, record number of denials of freedom of information requests, and now he doesn't like the way the campaign is going. It seems that the media can't do anything quite right.
Well, and you have to imagine the reaction if the media did not cover Trump and his remarks. But, Dylan, it's always good to go back and reflect and see if the media could do anything better. I mean, what is your view?
Well, look, I think, we sort of want to see things in black and white. We either want to blame the media for all of our problems, or say that it's just doing a bang-up job. I mean, the truth is that it's much more nuanced and it's much more complicated than that. The fact is we could have a much better media establishment in this country. We could have a media that focuses purely on policy issues, that doesn't address the sort of sensationalism and gutter sniping that takes place in these campaigns, but that addresses the issues that people like. Unfortunately, people don't watch that. And at the end of the day, the media business is a business. And you have to give the people what they want, as sad as that is. And
it's taken on many forms, especially with social media and all the different types of journalists that are out there now. Errol Louis, Dylan Byers, really interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, the allure